George Banks, played by Steve Martin, is the proprietor of a sports shoe company located in San Marino, California. His daughter Annie, played by Kimberly Williams, returns from Europe and announces her engagement to Brian McKenzie, a man from an affluent family in Bel Air whom she had only known for 3 months. This news comes as a sudden shock to George, and he gets into a heated argument with Annie. However, they soon make up before Brian's arrival. George harbors an instant aversion towards Brian, despite his charming demeanor and financial stability. Meanwhile, George's wife, Nina, played by Diane Keaton, sees Brian as a potential son-in-law and accepts him readily. After Annie's engagement, George and Nina meet Brian's parents, John and Joanna McKenzie. Although John admits to having been initially surprised by Brian's marriage plans, George is relieved to find someone who shares his shock. However, George's curiosity gets him into trouble when he starts poking around and gets chased by the McKenzie's fierce Dobermans, ultimately falling into the pool. Despite the incident, everyone makes amends, and the Banks family meets with the flamboyant wedding designer Frank Egelhofer, played by Martin Short, and his assistant Howard Weinstein, played by B.D. Wong. George immediately begins to complain about the extravagant prices of the wedding items, which cost $250 per head, and the problems with the wedding invitations. As the stress builds up, George becomes slightly unhinged, and when his ill-fitting tuxedo tears, he loses his cool and storms out of the house. He causes a commotion at a supermarket, where he starts removing hot dog buns from their 12 bun packets to match the 8 dog packets of hot dogs, in protest of paying for things he doesn't want. His actions land him in jail, but Nina comes to his rescue on the condition that he stops sabotaging Annie's wedding. With the help of Nina and Frank, George starts to relax and become more accepting of Annie's wedding, especially when they receive expensive gifts from their extended family members. However, the wedding plans hit a roadblock when Annie and Brian have a disagreement over a blender he gave her as a gift. The situation escalates when Annie refuses to believe George's version of events from when he fell into the pool at Brian's house. In an attempt to get rid of Brian, George takes him out for a drink, but after seeing the heartbreak on his face and hearing his genuine love for Annie, George has a change of heart and finally accepts him. George confesses to Annie the truth about what happened at Brian's house, and they reconcile their differences. Despite some last-minute issues with the weather, the wedding preparations are finally complete almost a year after Brian and Annie's first meeting. They get married, and the reception is held at the house, despite objections from a nosy police officer regarding the number of parked cars on the street. Unfortunately, George misses seeing Annie throw the bouquet, and he is unable to say goodbye to her before she and Brian depart for their honeymoon in Hawaii. However, she calls him from the airport to express her gratitude and love before they board the plane. Now that the house is empty and the wedding is over, George finds comfort in Nina's company and shares a dance with her.